Bag E. Now we're going to put together the suspension, not the suspension, the steering parts. Grease ready here, and this is step number 16. Step number 16 is one of the ones that has an extra addendum to the instructions, so I will be careful to follow that when it comes to that exact point, and I will point it out. I'm trying to speed up here a little bit because I've lost so much time farting around with stupid little problems. All right, it's plastic parts bag number 3 that has the bell cranks on it. This all runs on bearings, so that's nice. Coil springs like this, especially heavy ones, always give them a pre-compression just to help break the ends a little bit. Make sure they're not sticking together. The bearing goes on top. Here's the compression adjuster. Takes care of that side. Now the other one. Okay, this all looks good. All right, this is one of those spots where you need to use the errata, the extra added in insert part of the manual. Basically, what it comes down to is you need to use the screw, then the flanged bearing, then on top of that you put one of these 1/2 millimeter thick washers. So the original instructions did not show you the use of the washer, but make sure that you do put that in. That's one of the things that they changed, that they updated with the new instructions, and that's just going to go straight in. It's going into plastic, so no need for a thread lock compound there. All right, fast forwarding to make up some time here. Just have to make a couple more links, and these are the steering tie rods, or toe links. Do be mindful of the orientation of your turnbuckles, whichever way that you want them to be. It's going to have one short, straight ball end on one end and one angled one, a little offset to it on the other. And while tightening these up, I did have one tip that I want to share with you. To get the length that they want here, 47.5 millimeters, you will need to tighten both ends down pretty far. And it's very easy to over tighten these, especially this end, the straight end, where as it bottoms out, if you go any bit farther than where it's bottomed out all the way in, it'll start to push a little bit of plastic into the hole, which will make it so that it's very difficult to insert these, and they'll have too much friction on them, the insert pieces. So if you see any little bubbling coming up in there, you've gone too far. Back it out and try to push that bubble back in, but you will need to get very close to there on both ends, and down here it's not going to actually affect the insert, but it will start to strip if you go too far. So be very careful with these. Take your time, go little by little. If you see any indication of anything happening down here, stop, back it out, fix that, and then do all of your length adjusting from this end from that point. There are 3 locations where you can put this screw through, and the instructions don't make it completely clear just which one to use. It looks like they might be suggesting the outermost one, the forwardmost one. I'm just going to go with that for now, but may need adjustment. I think that's going to change your both the throw and the Ackerman a little bit. Instructions specify the use of 12 millimeter screws and the low profile little nut. In the same bag that you're using right now, you'll find both the high profile and low profile nuts, so be careful with that. But using those 12 millimeter screws, it's not enough. It doesn't really grab onto the nylon ring at all. So I need to get some 14 millimeter ones, because that's already a little bit too tight, you can see, and it's still not grabbing. So I will use 14 millimeter screws for that, which they give you some 15 millimeter ones, but those are for a different step, so I'll have to add my own hardware here. All right, 15 millimeters it is. And let's see how this goes this time. This is another thing that's easy to over tighten, I encountered this problem with my Ready to Run Wraith because they use these plastic inserts in there rather than metal ones. If you over tighten these, it'll start to squish and kind of balloon out the inserts, and then those will tighten everything up also in a way that you don't want. There they are for now, sticking up just a little bit, but it's better than not being connected at all. All right, these will get attached here, and they're going to use some cap head screws, specified some thread lock to go into them from underneath. It's kind of weird that these are on the plastic parts, not going into metal, so there's a little bit of range of motion there. Hopefully that'll get tightened down with whatever's going to be attached here. Looks like this guy is going to go in there somehow, like so, as an insert, and the whole front end is going to go on top of that. Something like this. Got my front drive dog bone in. I can attach these. It's almost starting to look like the front end of a vehicle or something, huh? There's a little bit of a cage that goes over the top, and it's actually a kind of flimsy piece of plastic. It's in bag number 4. I've seen it a bunch of times so far, going back and forth into bag 4. It's this thing here, and lots of screws are going to attack this thing, so I'm going to start from the front. I've got 4 just to get it angled properly. The 2 going into the tops of the bell crank posts do get thread lock. There's that in place, and it brings me no surprise whatsoever to see that even though they've got a nice little notch cut out for the dog bone, par for the course, the dog bone will touch down here at this side. Probably not going to see it all that well on camera, but down here it will touch depending upon where it slides. So the notch is just a little bit in the wrong place. It needed to be farther down. It's not going to be an issue. It's not really binding. This thing does move about freely, and even if it is all the way back here, it's still it's really not going to be a factor. But the notch is not quite right. Now I get to do the rear, and let's see what they got in store for us here. Got a little plastic piece that goes underneath. Looks like this guy goes on top, and they kind of clamp together. It's going to use some self-tapping long countersunk screws. These are coming up from underneath. I'm just going to put one of those in place to try to hold some of this in there while I position it. All right, so I actually had to screw that through, no problem. And here the long rear dog bone goes in. It's 143 millimeters to the rear. This is going to go in. Hopefully no surprises here. Okay, that went together all right. Kind of had to go back and forth between these 2 long screws to kind of work them together, because the holes on both of these plastic pieces were small enough that it was actually trying to thread into them. But got that worked out. Came together just fine. There's that. Then there is also a rear chassis brace, which is also plastic, and that's just going to go on the other side. It's kind of the same story as the up front, but minus the steering bell cranks. There's that. Whoops, there we go. Okay, so it's looking pretty decent so far. Next up, I get to install the motor and servo.